name's John Matthesen. I'll be the moderator today, and we're going to do introduction so you know who we are because our backgrounds are not really printed in the program, so we'll give you a little of that. The format today, I don't know about you, but I am absolutely sick of panels, so we're not going to do a panel like, we're not going to do the serial speech thing, so we're actually going to talk amongst ourselves and you get to listen in. If we finish in time, we'll do some questions, but we only have basically half an hour, right? So it's not time for our life stories or anything like that. We're going to talk about topics in this machine learning AI environment, hopefully something stimulating. And then after this, there's like a half-hour break. So then you can come up and talk to us or do whatever. If there's time for a couple questions, we'll do it. But I'm warning you, if you pick up the mic and say, I have a quick question, I'm taking it away, because that never works, right? It's never quick. All right. Let's see. My background, by training, I'm a chef. I'm also a network engineer. I've been in high tech for longer than I should admit. My first tech company was when we were making something called a database. That was when it didn't exist, and this was before the internet. Can you imagine that? There was no internet when I started. So I've been in tech for years. I now am putting things back together with my food and my ag. So I helped Roger found this ag tech group about 6 years ago, and I run a small farm now. So. And I teach culinary school, and I have a blockchain startup, and what else? Probably some other stuff. So that's me. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we're gonna talk about machine learning. Right.
Great, thank you. I'm Brian Curtis, founder and CEO of Cocentric Power. My background is a mechanical engineer by training. Spent a lot of time in the power industry and process industries, went to work as a refinery engineer right out of school, and has since gotten involved with a whole bunch of different technologies, everything from internet to chemical science for taking waste chemicals and turning them into nutritional supplements for pigs and chickens.
Do you know what a slide rule is?
I have seen a slide rule.
Yeah. All right.
And I've seen pocket protectors.
Yeah.
Yes, so are you saying I'm old?
No, I had to use one. I had no calculator. I got you beat. I just was curious.
I just like to do long division. So I'm an engineer at heart, but have spent time all over the world pursuing a whole bunch of different technologies, and we'll talk about Cocentric a little bit, but more interestingly, the topic of machine learning and some of the science and math that goes into that.
Great. And Cocentric briefly is just how would you?
Yeah, real briefly, what Cocentric Power, what we do is we produce power plants for industrial ag facilities, mostly for refrigeration applications. So if you look at the cold chain, usually starts at a cold processing facility and goes from there. And that first facility is the most energy intensive piece of the puzzle because you have to actually cool
this
stuff.
Food and dairy, or?
I don't know if I can credibly say we're a startup anymore because we've got some commercial plants and have been going for a little while. But we've been focused on fresh vegetables mostly, but the same technology applies to really meat, poultry, fish, and then take that a step further and it gets into data centers and all kinds of other stuff.
Great.
So
okay.
We have a big vision starting off with
we need an all-day topic for you. That's good.
Sure.
All right. Adrian.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Adrian Ferrero. I'm co-founder and CEO of Biome Makers. Biome Makers is a smart microbial discovery startup based in West Sacramento. And in essence, what we have developed is a technology able to provide a unique layer of information that has been always there, but we were not able to see, which is all the microbes that are living in our soil, in our farms, all around us, and also the way to use intelligent computing to understand what these microbes have to tell us. So somehow we are translating the language of the microbes to the farmers to take value out of that. And we start applying this technology for the wine industry. We have been sequencing vineyards all around the world. We have already sequenced more than 3,000 samples of soil coming from different vineyards. So we have a pretty nice reference or view on how the microbiome of the vineyard looks like. And now we are expanding to other crops, as well as assessing the effect on the microbial community of any farm input or practice that the growers are doing or are using in their fields. Is that 1.5 minutes?
I'm thinking about the wine. Did you bring any?
Yeah, well, that's great because the reason we decided to start in wine is because in the vineyard you find the most complex microbial biodiversity. Microbes in the vineyard impact not just the plant itself, so how the grapes perform, but also, I think most of the people have heard the concept terroir. Those are the regional flavors coming in the wine coming from the origin. And it happens that the way the International Wine Organization defines terroir is the impact of climate, weather, geography, soil, grape variety. But there is no way to measure that. And we realized that, well, all these elements impact the microbiome in the soil, and in the soil we find the reservoir of fermentative species that will travel from the soil to the surface of the grape, and from there into the cellar, and then they will participate in the fermentation and leave the flavoral fingerprint. So studying this kind of correlations is great, because then we can understand better the regionality flavors of the wine.
I'm ready. Max.
Hi, I'm Max Bruner, the founder and CEO of Mavrx. We're about a 4-year-old company focused on using imaging and data science to support the sale of seed, chemical, and fertilizer. Mostly work with major agriculture retailers across the US and Canada. And we recognized early on, as we began to build an imaging solution in agriculture, that there was this huge opportunity to support how distributors sold seed, chemical, and fertilizer. There's actually it's quite a process of customer support, sort of discovery of what kind of products customers need, those customers being the farmer, of course, and then tracking the performance of the field and ultimately helping to sell that product again or make the right input decisions. So it's a platform for the industry, mostly across large commodity crops, corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, other sort of major row crops. And all of our data comes from both public sources like satellite, but then also an aircraft network that covers the US and parts of Canada. So today the platform is used on just over 20 million acres across 28 states, and used by a number of the major seed, chem, and fertilizer distributors.
And are you selling seed and fertilizer products as well, or are you just putting the information together?
No, it's really just a platform to manage, for the retailers to manage their customers. A little bit like a customer success platform meets Salesforce. So we do a lot of lead generation for them, identifying opportunities to sell fertilizer or other kinds of seed products, and then help them track issues that might come up in the field for their end customer, the grower.
Cool. I ask only because years ago I helped build one of the first B2B marketplaces on the internet. That's when the internet came into being, so I built that. So I'm interested in that. So.
No, it's an interesting space too, and I know there's a number of companies working in that space today in the industry.
Great. Sebastien.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sebastien Boyer, co-founder and CEO of Farmwise. We're a technology company based in the Bay Area, and we use artificial intelligence and robotics to provide new ways for farmers to perform their task in the field. So we're starting with vegetable farms and starting to focus on the specific process of weeding vegetable farms. So we started about 2 years ago, and we're this summer about to release our first set of machines that will basically provide a new alternative for vegetable growers to do those processes. So where growers can only rely today on either herbicides or actual human labor to do those processes, we want to provide a new way of doing those tasks using only robotics and artificial intelligence. So personally, like just one sentence on myself, come from a applied mathematics and computer science background, mostly research-oriented up until I started to focus on this fascinating space and partnered with other engineers, but more importantly with farmers to iterate through different products that led to this company.
Great. Pull your chair in a little bit so we can gab a little bit. So, well, there's lots of topics that we could go over. We could be here all day on this. I mean, it's exciting to think about the changes in computing. And of course, because I've been doing this for longer, I can see from starting with nothing even called a database to all this stuff that we have, and especially Max, you're dealing with trillions of pieces of data, I guess, right? So it's quite an amazing transformation. But now what? We can talk about, all these things. What's next? What's really, what would you say if you were an investor today? What's an amazing thing? Is there an amazing thing, or are we just at sort of the next progression? There's the probable next, or is there some massive thing out there that we're going to see? What do you think? I don't know. We're in such different things. There's lots to choose from. What do you think? Go ahead, Max. You got.
I will say the first thing.
Please,
thank you.
Jump right in.
Yep, that was the idea, isn't it?
That's okay. I'll go next.
No, it's fine.
Now, I would say that the first thing we should do is to leverage what it has been done in other fields. So all the processing capacity, all the potential of identifying patterns and build predictions, that's the kind of things we should be working on.
Yeah, well, and you're all about bacteria, right? I mean, that's a for sure thing. Now, this is interesting. So we got bacteria, and then you're at the power level. And which one is more important? Are they equal potential?
I think there's equal potential, but where I look at the world, I'm coming from more of a macro systems level, is I talk about the cold chain. I think there's going to be some massive disruption from how you go from seed and crop science, like in the most fundamental level, to get those products all the way to 7 billion people efficiently and keep the resource efficiency on each step of the way in sync with itself.
Sure. Yeah, Max, you were going to say something. I cut you. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think there's two really interesting trends and opportunities happening across at least large-scale crop production today. One is kind of this transition of the workforce. It's expensive to employ a lot of people, especially in the sale and support of a lot of products, at least that we see at Mavrx. And so we're interested in how do you get really high-skilled, really knowledgeable people in the field supporting with training and technical assistance for farmers. And that's critical because that also creates a platform for new types of crops, new types of products. And I think the next question is, should every acre in the U.S. be corn and soybeans, or are there other kinds of crops?
God, I hope not. So yeah, I mean,
so that's
genetically modified
exactly.
soybeans, right? That's our future.
Well, I would agree that there are other kind of crops.
And there are many kinds. And so in order to catalyze that transition, what kind of a platform, what kind of people, what kind of products do you need, and how do you incentivize that transition? I think that's probably one of the more interesting questions that we deal with pretty consistently.
Well, I hope, I'm hoping, especially, with advances in bacteriology, but, can we eat more things by use of machine learning and AI? Because, the world is living on 5 crops basically globally now, and my friends are out here somewhere from Uruguay where I work, and it's all soybeans. It's all genetically modified soybeans and wrecked waters from all the chemicals going on them. So we have room to improve, I hope. I don't know.
Yeah, I think on that, like historically, specialty crops like vegetables have been more expensive to grow, right, on a per acre basis. And one of the main reasons for that is how labor intensive it is to grow those crops. And to your question earlier, what's next? I think AI is now reaching the point where it starts to be useful to actually control mechanical systems, and those mechanical systems are going to be able to grow more hard to grow food like vegetables. So
are you going to be able to, like we talked earlier here today, that California is cutting back on stone fruits because we don't have enough labor, it's too expensive, and machines so far aren't good enough to pick them because they're too soft and too delicate. Are you gonna fix this? We're waiting.
So one day, probably, I think a lot of the very labor-intensive tasks in farming, mostly in the specialty crops, are going to be automated. I also think that automation is not going to just replace what people were doing before, but more importantly, increase the productivity of acres and of the farmers making the decisions.
Sure, but are you going to can you make mechanical pickers yet that can replace a human?
I can't today, but I'm sure we'll figure that out in the next couple of years.
Is this a machine learning thing that will that get better? It should, right? I mean, that's my fantasy, right? Is that these machines are going to get so good that they can replicate a a human.
Yeah,
hand, right?
when it comes to picking, it's not only about machine learning. It's a complex problem, and a lot of fields are necessary to build those kind of tools. But machine learning is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then comes the next question, Max. Are we job creators or are we job killers with this? Maybe a little of both, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a new kind of work that's coming. Like I said, there's a higher skill set that's needed, or at least a higher knowledge base that's needed to really look at all the opportunities of what we can grow and how we grow it. I think, again, what excites me about AI and sort of data science in the space right now is how it can empower farmers to provide them more choice. Back to this issue of GMOs, corn and soybeans, a lot of farmers in the country grow 2 crops. Why? They don't have to. Not all of them have to.
They don't have to. It's an economic choice, right? More than a biology choice.
And it's also an access to products and access to information challenge, access to financial services that support maybe the growing of 12 crops, right? And if you look in Canada, we actually see this already happening. But I think data science and AI support more choice for a lot of farmers.
But you're right, though. I mean, I just talked to somebody yesterday in wine country. They're clamoring for more tools, more things, because they don't have the skilled labor to go into the fields and pick those very delicate grapes. So they want us to make more automated or robotic or whatever tools, right? So I don't know, is that what you're running into? So you're not making
actually,
tools,
I will say that the innovators are job killers, but what is for sure is that the labor force is going to change. As you mentioned, the skills, that's key. So we should not understand a labor force in agriculture like non-trained. They have to be very skilled, and as we have better understanding on what's happening, we have better tools, better machines, then people need to know how to handle them. So for sure, there will be some positions that are going to be destroyed, but there are going to be new jobs.
New jobs, right. And maybe higher paying jobs? I don't know, because now you have to know how to run computer equipment, analyze. Your stuff is probably complex. I have to think, and yours is probably not so easy to run either. So now we can't have the $5 an hour unskilled labor. So this is what is this going to get better? It's probably going to have a period of badness, right, where we're innovating and we don't have the match between the labor force and what you guys are making.
And also we have an element too that the cities are congested. So perhaps if we increase the qualification needed in agriculture, we'll have this transition and people will be more spread all around, which is a good indicator.
I hope so. Brian, jump in.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that I think it's all about resource efficiency. So you've got human resources, you've got natural resources, the ground and the climate and those sorts of things, capital resources, and being able to deploy assets efficiently. And it's a little bit of a game of whack-a-mole. You get more efficient at one thing and another thing gets less efficient. So if you want to automate being able to pick a certain crop, you may not be able to get the same yield from that same acre. So I think where AI and machine learning gets interesting is being able to more efficiently do all of those things and solve the complex problems that you can't do intuitively, and it takes massive computing to do that. And then all of a sudden you've got the same human resources doing a lot more with the same natural resources. And the good news is the demand for everything, it continues to grow exponentially.
Well, we're not running out of people, right?
We're not running out of people, and we're not running out of...
we are running out of food, water, and arable land. So that's all good stuff to work on.
Yeah,
right?
and throw the developing world on top of that, where protein per capita and all those sorts of things are just getting off the ground, and it's going to get pretty acute.
Need more cows. Eat cow.
So on the labor concern, I think for sure the labor force is going to change over the next few years in farming, as Adrian said. So the next question I think is around education and how are we making sure today that we train that workforce that's going to be able to handle those complex pieces of equipment tomorrow. That I think is a critical question today. Through educational programs at universities, and how are we making sure the technology companies are involved in those programs to kind of direct professors and direct universities towards the most promising path for the students? I think that's another interesting question.
What's it going to take when you make some great robotic device that's very smart. What kind of person is going to run that? Is it a college degree? Do I need a 4-year degree in computer science, or is the machine learning stuff going to be good enough that I can just come in as an unskilled laborer and learn how to do it? What's the future?
I don't think it's the latter. I think it's going to be close to what other industries have seen. So a mix of high-skilled technicians that are not necessarily engineers and not necessarily coming from the bigger schools, but who have skills to handle those machines, and a broad spectrum from probably those jobs to more engineers, both machine learning engineers, complex systems engineers, and a broad variety of people.
You need education, is what you think, yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be, on average, it's going to be, I think, way more educated than the types of low-skilled labor that we're seeing on the field today.
I would modify that a little bit and say not necessarily education so much as good training, and some of that can be in the field training. So you don't necessarily need a college degree to be really good at playing some of those roles.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah, actually, I think job opportunity, maybe the machines should be teaching the people how to use them, right? Is that?
Well, actually, we have this morning a very good example in the keynote that they were talking about the tractor, the rabbit, and the turtle. So at the end, technology has to be easy to use. Otherwise, it's different what is behind the technology or behind the user. And for that, we'll need very well-trained people and experts, because if we need maintenance, if we need to fix something, but we're dealing with that every day. We drive cars, and most of us don't know how to build a car or what's happening inside the car in detail.
Right. Well, it's going to be. This is one of the things, and I heard this from the people I was talking to in Sonoma yesterday. They were very worried about. They want all these tools, but who's going to do it, and what happens if it breaks? And did you just wipe out a whole acre of Cabernet grapes because your bacteria went wild and nobody's there to fix it? So yeah. It's going to be scary, right? So, how did you learn this? What did you do? How did you figure this out?
You mean
what you're doing? I mean, the biology. And I mean, are you a
well,
PhD?
I'm bachelor in economic science, but my family produced wine back in Spain. So this is the second company we built. The first one was a genetic diagnostic center specialized in DNA sequencing. And then we figured out that the potential of this technology was even beyond health, was also applied to agriculture.
So you have a lifetime of growing up with this, and you're really smart.
Well, I wouldn't say smart, but the people around me, it did.
A lot of college education, right? I don't know. Is this something we need, Max?
Well, I think this is something that I think we work on a lot, is just this feedback loop. So if we're better at sensing and we're better at seeing issues in the field before it's too late, I think it actually allows for more people, even remotely, to be involved in supporting a farm and supporting production. So the skill of the person on the farm doesn't necessarily need to be, PhD level. They just need to have great technical support.
What about curiosity? They need to be curious.
That's right. They need to be engaged. They need to enjoy what they're doing, right? Smart and enjoy what they're doing, and then have the right technical training. But then I think we actually are entering a world now where we have a whole army of people ready to support us if we've connected our farm and our field the right way.
Right. Do you think there's a danger of us moving this up into a skill set that's going to really alienate and leave out some of the unskilled worker pool we have, or is that a good thing? I don't know. What do you think?
That's a hard question. I think, again, training and education is going to play the biggest role into moving that workforce, adapting that workforce to what is going to be required in the field tomorrow. One of our most critical hire now is to find those field technicians, as we call them. So people with basic training in mechanics and electronics, but who are going to be in the field working with the machines that we're building. So our plan for that is to train people, so find people with the right basic set of skills, but then train them toward being able to fix all the issues related to our machines. Yeah. So training and education.
How far away is the horizon of this? I mean, for robotic pickers and things. I mean, they're all out there. We see them, and we talk about it in this group a lot. But how are we 10 years away from this in the field, or so you want it to be faster?
We're releasing 3 machines this summer. So our machines don't pick fruits, but they weed vegetable farms. So I think we're at like the beginning, but it's happening now, I think.
May I throw back the question? Depending on how quick we need them, that will be the answer, no?
That's a good point, yeah. Brian?
Another way to say that is that it's going to take a crisis.
Yeah, may take a crisis, yeah. We might be there. Yeah.
But the technology is ready, I think. That's the main thing. Like the state of the technology, whether it is AI, data science, or robotics, I think the state of the technology is now ready to help on those different challenges. The question is more like from where should we start? Are we starting with picking or with other tasks or with data science, and what kind of data science are we starting with? But as the need will grow, the providers will answer the need.
I think it's going to sneak up on us a little bit too, because we've got a lot of trends that are building off each other, and they're all exponential. Just in our business, some of the stuff that we have built on is computing power and performance curves on engines and things like this, like mechanical systems. They're all getting better, and when you put them together, all of a sudden you wake up one morning and realize that something that was sort of conventional wisdom 10 years ago, just you can throw it out the door and you can do things that people will tell you are not possible.
Right.
And then it just takes somebody to say, well, no, hold on a sec, it is possible, like here's the math.
Yeah, well, we've seen it over and over again in technology that we make all these things and then they don't fit together, and we've heard a lot of that. Roger and I run in this group for 5 or 6 years now. When we first started that, and I think it still is a big complaint, is all these things, they don't interoperate very well, and everybody really wants it to work right here and not in other things. One single device to run the farm, but we have components. So how hard is this going to be to integrate? I don't know. You're kind of at that macro level. So are you. You guys are, you're at the big level. Can we do it? Not yet.
No, I actually think, just piggybacking on what was said a little earlier, a lot of the technology is available. This is really a market sort of readiness and scale challenge. Agriculture as a whole is a challenging industry because you have a lot of sub-segments, right? You've got apples, you've got vineyards. All these markets sort of individually are big and small at the same time, but in aggregate, it's an exciting space, right? The numbers look great when you put all the numbers together. I think what's the real question is, and the macro challenge we have is, we need more protein, we need more energy, we need more fiber. We have to figure out how to help all of the arable land in the world figure out how to maximize value. And as we do a better job incentivizing a farmer in South Africa who has an opportunity to grow not 1 or 2 crops, but potentially 12, know he has that opportunity, know he has the equipment to support growing that crop, he has the data and the biologicals and the knowledge of where to source the seeds and the inputs. And then finally, he has a way of doing that really efficiently, both from downstream, processing is more efficient, so he can get the best price, we can build factories efficiently, and he has the data that he needs to make some of those decisions. Like, it's really an issue of integration of all the available data.
Yeah, I hear that integration is
That's
definitely an issue here, and I see the opportunity there, though. As an entrepreneur, I'm thinking, this looks like job opportunity here, right? It's a project to make these things. I think we should form a company. Look at what we could do with a company here, and I'll represent the farmer that wants to grow.
That's a really complicated company.
Yeah, well, but you know what? As I sit here as a farmer, I'm thinking, yeah, this sounds really good and really like I can't do it, right? Because I don't know if you all come to me individually, I'm going to think, wow, this is really great, but now is my life better, or is it more complicated than ever? I don't know, maybe a little of both.
So one way to think about it is, if you take all these thoughts to their logical conclusion, you start to think about indoor farming and bringing a completely controlled environment from microbes to the crops themselves, all the inputs, including energy. And what's interesting from a cost structure perspective is, if you look at ag today, and I'm thinking about fresh vegetables because that's what I live in every day, but the costs are labor, materials, transportation to market, and then energy is kind of the last one, roughly in that order. If you start to go indoor farming closer to the end market, it turns out completely upside down, and all of a sudden energy is the most expensive or cost.
Right, and
then
distribution is low.
distribution goes away, it's all automated, and it just flips the cost structure upside down, and it gets really interesting and very different, and potentially
well,
really
for sure, indoor controlled environment is for sure a machine learning thing, right? I mean, that's we're here, right? So dial a climate, the climate in the box project that's going on. You should be able to just say, hey, I want New Zealand, or I want whatever climate, Tuscany, right? And dial it up, and then we don't need outdoor farms.
For some crops. It's hard to imagine that for soy or stone fruit or wine.
Difficult. Yeah.
I'm an outdoor farmer. I don't like controlled environment, even though I work with it. And I have a couple projects going on I'm working on some indoor strawberries, and they're really good. But I like outdoor stuff. I don't know. What do you think? Can we do this all indoors though? Are all the inputs there?
Even indoor farming has some challenges and some uncertainties that we have to learn from. So talking about the integration of different technologies, what I really think is that we are missing kind of marketplace of solutions where the farmer can go and pick it up. So it's not like different guys visiting him and he deciding which one is the right one, because at the end you are curious about everything, but you always have main questions. You don't question everything. It's not the same a palm grower in Malaysia, a vineyard grower in South Africa, or an almond grower here in California. They have different questions, they face different problems. Some of them is energy, for others is labor force. So at the end, having access to this and understanding which are the main problems, I would say that's how we bring value.
Yeah, this sounds dauntingly complicated, right? There's a lot to know. You're right. Look at all the different things, and all are huge. So
on the question of integration, I think a lot of it also will come from the technology providers helping growers adapt the technology. And one way I think this is happening is through different business models. I think business models can be innovative business models can be used to make it easier for growers to adapt those new technologies, both from a risk standpoint and from an integration standpoint. The big trend of using more and more as a service kind of business models in agriculture, I think is not going to go away. I think that's a good way for growers to try and easily adapt to new technologies, both from a financial risk standpoint. It makes it easier for them to try something without having to invest a lot of money in it. And from an integration standpoint, a lot of those business models come from a lot of support and like as easy as possible integration. So I'm expecting to see more and more of those new kind of business models being deployed by technology companies in farming because of that.
Yeah, and it sounds, I kind of hear something as like we almost need a meta layer of machine learning capability that can filter down to all this. I don't know. What do you think? You're smiling. I don't know. Is it? Can that even be done?
Put me on the spot.
I worked on the original teams building this thing called XML, if you remember that, and that was my early forays into understanding. Can you make things talk together? We were using XML to replace something else called EDI, and you're probably not old enough to remember this, but that was another train wreck of the lingua franca between everything. How do we do it? Is machine learning the answer, or just another extremely difficult thing to do?
I think machine learning is just another ingredient to sort of solve the grand challenge that we have, which is producing more food with less resources. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all kind of after similar things here from different angles, and these are each a part of the solution. I think that the real question again is humans tend to be pretty bad at seeing some of these long-term issues and solving them early. How do we deal with that? And then sort of working our way back. So it's a question of human behavior. And that's really hard. I mean, a lot of what we're doing here is trying to change human behavior.
Well, no kidding. What industry? Name any other industry that has the word culture in its title, right? Agriculture, right? This is the hardest place to make a change, right? So you're right.
So it's all about structuring incentives, right? So it's back to the business model, and for those of you in the audience who might know me, like I talk a lot about financial services in agriculture, and a lot of this comes back down to price. It comes back down to the ease, and it comes down to a farmer making money. So if you can help them make money and show them the path, then it actually becomes a lot simpler.
Money is often the key, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Never mind the database, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, we can think in global challenges. When you were asking what's next, I fully agree that we should look what's the challenge now to think about what's next, and the challenge is to produce more food and to have qualitative food, I mean good food as well, and to keep that growth continuous over the years. But when it comes to a small scale, then it's the farmer question. You have to bring value for sure. And to bring value is to make things easy, to provide answers to unsolved problems, and to help them to sell more.
Yeah, and what about the small farm? I mean, in this country, that's the biggest growing section of farming is now the small farm, 10 acres and up, and mine's in that bracket. So are you guys making systems that are going to be accessible to the small farmer? You're probably not, right? Yours is big stuff. And why aren't you making something for me?
Yeah, no, it is, what we work on tends to be bigger, but what I would say is part of it is a lot of what we talk about is infrastructure. So for small farmers to be successful, there's got to be infrastructure that they can plug into, so to speak. And
Definitely.
Literally plug into for
Yeah,
electricity.
literally plug in.
And so you got to, just at a macro level, have the infrastructure in place that allows the small players to flourish and do what they can do. And that comes down to business models as well, is how do you, what's the business model look like to build infrastructure? Is that a government function, or is that a private function, or somewhere in between? I've got opinions.
That's going to be a touchy topic here. We'll skip that part, yeah.
On small farms, I think to Max's remark earlier, it's the farming industry is already a very fragmented industry, just when you look at different crops. Going after small farms makes it extremely challenging, just because it's so fragmented. So in an already very fragmented industry, it makes sense for companies like ours to focus on big players. So I think as in like other industries, the technology will come top down from the big players adopting those technologies first. And as the technology is getting cheaper and easier to integrate, it's going to fall down toward the smaller farms. But I don't think the other way around.
Yeah, well, it's tough. I mean, I would challenge you, like for picking devices or other tools for the farm. But as a small farmer, I can't afford. It doesn't make cost sense to have expensive tools. On the other hand, if you guys can help me figure out how to grow a greater diversity of products, then I can earn more money, then I can buy your tools. So, I'm waiting to see that happen. So it could be.
I can share the experience that we have with the wineries, because here in the States there are less than 9,000 wineries, and 99% of them are small farms. So when we approach them, we spend a lot of time trying to understand how to add value to those wineries at technical level by predicting diseases, telling them what is there, the potential fermentation that they have. But what they found more interesting, and it comes to is differentiation. Tell me something that makes me unique.
Right.
So I can go to the market and advertise me as a different one. And in wine, that's key, differentiation, because there are so many providers.
Absolutely. Well, and I tell people that all the time. On my farm, I can't compete on zucchini, right? I just can't do it. So I grow only exotic stuff. But then I need help. I mean, you should come visit me, and I need help with doing it. So maybe this is the answer: is you have to have something either affordable or differentiatable. So I like it. Yeah. What do you think? So, your service is probably beyond the reach of a small farm too, or not?
It is. To be fair, I think
to be unfair. Yes.
to be unfair.
I want to.
We spent a lot of time thinking about plant-based proteins, and this is probably taking off my Mavrx hat, putting on a different hat. I think the downstream consumer preferences are beginning to change. There's a lot of new food products out there being grown from plants that we weren't using before. And so I think you're going to see a lot more food companies moving upstream in procurement, coming to small farms and saying, hey, I'll give you a 10-year or a 5-year contract to grow mung beans. And right now...
Crickets. I want crickets.
Or crickets, exactly. I mean, a lot of growers are shipping some of their crops even across the world to be processed and then shipping them back to the U.S. to be put in food. So I think you see a lot of realignment of the supply chain, which will also lead to a lot of opportunities for smaller farms. But it's going to mean there's going to be an investment coming from the downstream, consumer brands back into the small farms so they get the production that they want at the cost they can afford.
Sure. And of course, consumer tastes are always sort of morphing, and that takes a long time. And I've been in the food business long enough to know that it really takes like a full cycle of food change is about a 15-year cycle. If you think about this country, like we had only milk chocolate before when I was a kid, and now we have how many 3,000 kinds of chocolate. But that took about 15 years for that to come in. So we're a ways away from all this differentiated product. But yeah, it's great. So let's check our time here. We have like 3 minutes left. Should we ask? Does anybody dying to ask a question? No?
You scared them.
Yeah, I scared them. I told them
question?
not to. Yeah, all right, go. Yeah. So let's carry on. So let's go back to as we get towards the end. I'll ask you the same question now. If you were an investor, what would you be looking for in machine learning, and what's the closest thing to great return on investment? Where can I not lose money?
Yeah, I think as we mentioned earlier, growers are very focused on value, and I think they've been disappointed a bit over the past few years with innovation that didn't necessarily have a very compelling value story. I think none of us are doing drones here, but so I think value is key, and a lot of the value is going to come from, of course, the analytics, but I would argue a good amount is going to come from the machines and the tools that are going to be used to leverage that analytics to make better decisions. So I will focus on things that are impacting the actual final decisions that's happening at the plant level.
So what was the short on that? Machines?
Farmwise.
What?
Farmwise.
Okay. All right. Farmwise. Your company. What are the chances? Yeah. No, I won't ask. So yeah. Max?
I think I've been doing a bit of investing recently, and it puts you on a totally different side of the table. And it's never a question of what's your AI strategy. It's a question of how's your business model changing the cost of production. Ultimately, the business of farming is you're growing a crop, you're selling it downstream to hopefully somebody who wants it and values it for the long term. And so, are you impacting people? Are you impacting cost of production on energy, on materials, on the supply chain? And what's your distribution strategy? Because I think one of the biggest challenges across a complex industry like this is distribution. So you might build a great power supply for a farmer. How the hell do you get it to, how do you originate your contracts? Like the sales cycle is one of the first questions I usually ask another company. How long is that sales cycle? How consistent is the revenue? Right. These are all kind of key questions, I think.
No, it's good. Well, I'm always harping on my students at Berkeley that it really boils down to a value proposition, right? Of what value are you really bringing to somebody? And sometimes it's monetary, and sometimes it's, hey, it gets me home faster to pick up my kid at soccer practice. That sometimes
you can throw an AI strategy in there. It's great.
Well, yeah, and you're right. It's probably part of it. So, all right, Adrian, what are you going to invest in?
If I were an investor. I have very good
You can't
choice.
be a startup guy and investor because startup guy is always broke,
my mind.
Right?
So I will think on those technologies or enabling technologies benefiting from deep learning, machine learning, all kind of intelligent computing, because building proper predictions helps to deliver new solutions that are not there and either are needed now or are going to be needed soon. So that will be my choice.
So you're investing in data. Data, I guess, information?
Well, more than the data itself, because, the world is full of data. There are some sensors, other sensors are being developed, but the way to process those data and the way to understand the patterns, that's what is interesting.
Yeah, so actionable data, I guess. All right, so Brian, you're gonna invest in power.
I'm invest in power. No, I think about as an investor, kind of two ways to think about it. One is from a venture standpoint. I think some of the technologies that can be applied across different subsectors within ag. In other words, a platform that can take a technology that applies to fresh vegetables, but then it also applies to other verticals, and be able to replicate it and be scalable is where it gets interesting. And then the second sort of investment thesis that I would have, or I do have, is a totally different asset class, but sustainable infrastructure. I think that's going to be a really big deal. It's not necessarily a venture thing, but it's more of a private equity and larger, different asset class, but
Sure.
huge opportunities.
Well, venture capital doesn't fit ag model very well, does it? So,
Or energy, for that matter.
or energy, yeah, it's pretty tough. So, and as an angel investor, it's really difficult, right? Big things that cost $20 million not friendly to the angel investor. So, yeah.
So it gets back to that idea of if you've got something that you can deploy a technology and then bring in project finance, which is the big money, to go build infrastructure, that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, agreed. And I hope you have those connections. So, yeah.